to our final segment. We have Super Rugby Unlocked. We move back to South Africa. Obviously, their domestic competition got underway last week. And we had some good games in that as well. It was good to see some Springboks back in action for their club colours. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of uncertainty around a lot of South African rugby all throughout, between the Rugby Championship, between this competition, between the Pro 16 talks as well. It's nice to just see them back on the pitch playing some rugby.
Doing what they do best.
But in terms of the first round, we had some interesting results. The main fixture, the two big dogs, Sharks v Lions, was a bit of a humdinger tight contest.
Yeah, it was a very good game.
19-16 it finished in favour of the Sharks, who kind of played their get out of jail free card for that one, I think.
They did. Well, I mean, they were very good in the early exchanges. I thought they were they got a nice early try for Werner Koch with some good play from Buthelezi at 7. I thought Noche at 8 was brilliant.
Okay,
and
good.
He's a guy who obviously has been working quietly in the background. Like, he's always been a stalwart in the Sharks, and he's a guy who could potentially feature in South African colours if there are to be South African games this year. He's a guy who could feature as stacked as that back row can be. I wouldn't be surprised to see Noche get in. He looked very skilled, very rangy, quick back row forward. Lovely soft hands, dominant in the contact on both sides of the ball. I thought he was excellent. I thought he was front runner for me for man of the match, and Van Heerden in the second row as well was very good. And they got their early try. They got on top of the Lions.
I was going to say Werner Koch. We mentioned him. Sevens man convert. Good to see him on the wing grabbing some meat.
It was Buthelezi did a really good job. Sucked in a couple of tacklers and got the ball out of his hands to Am, and then it was simple 2-on-1. And Werner Koch has a bit of meat.
Yes, exactly. So it's good to see him get open his account in Super Rugby Unlocked. For sure, some positives, but the Lions definitely did come back into it, and they played with a nice pace. Certainly asked some questions around the fringes. Yankees was pretty impeccable for the most part. Lovely crossfield kick. He made the play of the week with the crossfield kick from the penalty. Good quick thinking, really well executed pinpoint for their try.
Yeah, and I think in general open play, Yankees outplayed Kerwin Bosch, who was a little stuttery. Like the whole Sharks offense for the most part was just a little stuttery and a little reactive. He didn't make too much happen, where Elton obviously had that nice assist and was driving a good pace for the Lions. Marvin Ory as well had a good game.
Yes, the concern is that between those are two guys who are vying for that 10 shirt in the absence of Pollard, and Elton definitely had the better game, but when it came down to it, he made all his kicks up until the moment when he needed to kick to get them level, and he missed that one. And it wasn't that difficult to kick. It was a tricky enough kick, but it was
it was on the 22 a little out. It was for a kicker of his level, it was a gimme. And this is I don't want to besmirch him because he's quite a nice footballer, but the Springboks are in a bind in terms of out half if they won't have Pollard, and they won't have Pollard if they're playing in the Rugby Championship. And they can't just have 110 either.
No, that's no solution at all. They need to have options, and at the moment Elton is the incumbent guy on backup, but he kind of lost that during the World Cup, and they were going with Franz Steyn in the 6-2 split. That was kind of revealed because whenever the temperature increases just that little bit, when the pressure comes on, he kind of wilts. We've seen it before. We see it happen all the time.
He had a few years in the Springbok 10 shirt where he never quite played. He has issues. He has issues with pressure. He has issues with physicality and intensity. When once, as you say, the pressure valve gets ticked over, Elton often goes a begging. So in that regard, as good as he looked, that miss I think is massively concerning, and it's almost revealing in terms of this guy probably can't cut it at test level, which is very harsh because he's a lovely player, and I don't like besmirching guys like that. If he gets his chance, I hope it goes well for him. But they're in a bind at out half, and Elton really, having played a flawless game, should have levelled that game and should have gotten the draw away in Durban, which would have been a good result
to start them off, and they were good value for it, but he missed the chance to do it. Then in other news, we had the Cheetahs, as we suspected, starting like a rabbit out of a trap. 53 points to 31. A bit of a humdinger, high-scoring game. With the Pumas racked in a few soft scores in the second half.
Yeah, it was all over when the Pumas started scoring.
It was over at halftime. The Cheetahs looked mean. Looked like they mean business, because they do. They have we were mentioning they have a bone to pick, obviously, with the Pro 16 decision, feeling a bit jilted by the SARU. So
well,
yeah,
I tell you, that back line that they have with Pienaar at 9 and Schoeman at 10, and then Francois Steyn and Janssen van Rensburg in the centres with Jair and Speckman on the wings and Blomaches at fullback is as good as any backline that's playing in Super Rugby Unlocked, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a sensational
and
backline.
they can play with such tempo. They are frightening for any team at all. Certainly the Pumas looked shell-shocked and completely outmatched, and I feel for them. They haven't really been playing at that level, and they met a team with a point to prove, with a fair few Springbok caliber players in their starting lineup too.
Well, I think it was definitely good for the tournament that they managed to come back and get a few tries on the board. I think it was definitely helpful for their mentality, and they would have been, if they hadn't done that, if they hadn't come back and got a few scores, they probably would have been in a worse place mentally. Obviously, been spearheaded into this competition, and then against one of the allegedly weaker sides getting absolutely pummeled. Yeah. But no, they did come back into it. I think their out half looks a tidy enough player, and with any luck they can get out of the blocks a little quicker and not be shocked by the sheer pace or physicality of anything going forward. But potentially not.
Well, I think as well as the myriad of lovely tries that were scored by the Cheetahs in the first half, I think there was a defensive set when the Pumas finally got their hands on the ball after conceding 2 or 3 tries. They were pumping on the line, and you've seen in South African derby games before some softness creep in. You've seen from the Cheetahs some softness creep in, and they allowed them to score. They didn't allow them to score. They isolated the man, got the poach, and then were pumped when they got the penalty, and it's like, oh dear, this is going to be a long day. And it was a long day for the Pumas, but it was good to see the Cheetahs get off to a winning start. 53 points scored. Very exciting stuff in perfect conditions.
They have a mean squad and a point to prove, and they are going to be an absolute danger zone for any of the Super Rugby teams.
For anyone, especially away from home up at altitude. They're a very, very tough obstacle to come across.
We know it all too well as Pro 14.
Then possibly the game of the weekend in terms of
for sure,
just the surprise of it all. The Bulls stuttering and scuppering, and despite being physically superior, finding it very difficult to put the Griquas away. 30 points to 23 in favour of the Bulls it was in the end. Very sluggish start to the season for the much fancied Blue Bulls.
The Bulls kind of would remind you of sort of South African teams in the sort of end of Heineken Meyer, start of Alistair Coetzee era, where they do have some physicality. Like, remember the game against Japan? Of course we do, the Brighton Miracle.
Yes,
The kind of tries that South Africa did manage to stay in the game with in that game, despite being sluggish and outplayed and outthought. They did have moments where they revealed themselves, like Lou Diager and Adrian Strauss just winning a one-on-one contact and busting through to score a try. And the Bulls scored a couple of them, which ended up winning them the game. But generally speaking, sluggish.
Well,
not at the pace
the halfback combination, Van Sale and Mornay. I like Mornay. He's a stalwart. He's ancient. And between them, Van Sale is one of the slower scrum halves in world rugby. It's just a very slow, sluggish half-back pairing you've got.
Yes.
And I don't know quite what their game plan is with the ball with that. It's some of it's kicking, but it's not all kicking.
But it's slow without being direct, tight and sharp. Like there needs to be a sharp physicality to it. Like you can starve a team of possession, especially in this competition where so many of the teams, you get nice weather. It's summer really heading into spring heading into summer over in South Africa, but it's like the weather's fine. They're getting nice days. So if they can cause a team to be starved of possession and really eat up meters, choking them out in the slow contact, and maybe putting up a high bomb for them to chase, then you could see the Bulls putting on a winning picture. But they're just not marrying the slowness with any intensity.
Yes, and that's they're getting found out. Like the Griquas were comprehensively outmatched player for player, physicality wise, but they showed such industry and such a heads up play in terms of all of the tries they took. Particularly the one from the cross kick from Mornay that was kept in kind of ambitiously. The little bat up to yourself. It was fantastic tackle on the last man as well. The Griquas really showed a lot of heart, and it was great for the competition because I was concerned for both them and the Pumas.
Kasende, the right winger, looked very, very good. Fullback Volmenk, who you just mentioned there as well. I'm not as familiar personnel wise, but those guys looked impressive.
They did.
And it'd be like they're another speedy team who have the capacity in them to give these sides a rumble, and that's great for the competition.
It was. You saw a little bit of the levels just in terms of one of the first Griquas try. They scored lovely fix and give from their number 7, really good shape to it. Got them biting in and created the overlap, and then on the flip side was softed out of a big collision with a Bull, just kind of showing that yes, technically he knows the game. His fix and give is excellent. Just a little bit outmatched as far as the raw physicality that the Bulls did have in spades, probably should have implemented a bit better. But a great, encouraging start for the Griquas. They got their losing bonus point out of it. So they're off to a potentially, well, as good a start as they possibly could have asked for, because they're away from home against a much fancied side. Managed to get something out of the game.
Yeah, and in terms of what's going on this week, the opening game is on Friday evening, 6 p.m. British Standard Time. It's the Cheetahs against the Bulls in Bloemfontein.
A big, formidable place to go if you are slow and sluggish. The last quarter in Bloemfontein can be a horrible thing, and Cheetahs play some fast rugby.
I tell you, this is a very exciting game. You know, it kicks off exactly one rugby match before the Challenge Cup final, and it's just teed up Friday evening nicely.
Nice.
So this is going to be a lot of fun. This is, for me, is the game of the round. Cheetahs against the Bulls. Cheetahs against the Bulls. It's a great matchup, stylistic matchup, and a real opportunity, I think, for the Cheetahs, who have that bugbear, having been left out of the conversation for next season. To really make a statement.
Yeah, for sure. But then also the Bulls need to find something quick, because the Griquas and their quick heads up rugby caused them problems enough. The Cheetahs are lethal.
Better at that.
They're better than that.
Roscoe Speckman on the wingman.
Yeah, for sure. Like they can be devastating. So the onus is on the Bulls to try and impose their physicality and make their tempo be the main picture of the game. It will require some patience. It will require direction, but hopefully they will step up from what was one of the things that off the pace last week.
One of the things that the Bulls don't do is defend with speed. They're very, very reactive on defence, and that is something that the Cheetahs, with Ruan Pinar and Francois Steyn, you're going to expect them to look to exploit that. They're going to try and get it outside of that sort of laboured Bulls defence, which at times can have soft shoulders in it as well. So if they can play that sort of industrious attacking rugby at home at altitude, I don't see a reason why they couldn't really put the Bulls under pressure in this one.
No, I think so too. I certainly backed them in the last quarter to kind of blitz at them at altitude. I tend to back the Cheetahs to make the last quarters theirs. Same with the Lions in their home ground. The question mark is, will their pack be able to stand up? If the Bulls fancy it, will their pack be able to answer that call? Still don't know the answer to that. Their backline looks...
Will Dwayne Vermeulen feature? We didn't
see him last week, despite me picking him for the thumbnail. But yes, he is obviously to come back into the side. They do have some great personnel there. I don't know who I'm backing for it. I kind of hope for the tournament that the Cheetahs get the win. But I also kind of hope for the tournament that we see the Bulls turn up. If the Bulls turn up and put it to the Cheetahs and pump them and make them feel their physicality, then no regrets at all. The better team win. But if the Bulls are sluggish again and slow, I would love the Cheetahs to punish that with tries.
The other thing is that the Bulls, they do have slowness at halfback, but they also have Cornel Hendricks in there. They have Gio Aplin in there. You know, Arno Botha as a loose forward is very, very
great acquisition for them as well.
So there are tries to be scored against the Cheetahs. There's no reason why they couldn't hold their own even in a shootout at times against what can be a loose defence. So absolutely, I think the Bulls should be going there to try and open up the Cheetahs, and yes, to make them feel their physicality, but also to run in tries against soft shoulders like anybody else would, and I definitely think they should be looking to hold their own and maybe drive a little higher pace than they did in the first game. And it would be nice also to see Mornay playing well, because he's another guy who's going to come into that 10 conversation if they are to play in the Rugby Championship.
If the young lads aren't quite making the grade, then Mornay is definitely an option, as is Pinar at 9, or 10, or Schumann, who's the other one for there, or Franz Steyn, who all the 3/4 line or that little line for the Cheetahs are potential Springboks too. So a really good humdinger of a game, that one. And then another one for different reasons. Saturday 3:15 at Griquas Park in Kimberley, we have the Griquas and the Pumas. Probably the two lowest ranked teams, the Currie Cup stalwarts. A chance for either of them, to get a win on the board. Which will be huge for them. I would make Griquas favourites on last week's show on first game evidence alone. But it's potentially a fun game. Both of them seem potentially able to throw the ball around and
I like to think that the Pumas didn't show us everything that they have last week, that they started slow, they were a little shocked by the pace, but your man the out half Fouche looks a tidy player. They got themselves together and played some decent rugby in that second half, and if they can get out of the blocks sharper and match the Griquas for physicality, they also have offensive instincts, and they could make it a nice fun game. So while it is the sort of the lower ebb of this competition, it should be a good game. It should be interesting to see which of them can sort of take it to the other, and make a name for themselves.
Get some points on the board, get themselves up that table early doors. It's only round 2, but a nice chance to get a win on the board. The Greeks obviously with 1 point from their first showing, whereas the Pumas still sitting on a donut in terms of the league standings. So it'd be nice to see either or both win it. I'd just be looking for a competitive game where both of them get good hit outs for sure.
Yes.
And then the next game, Saturday 6 p.m, the last game of the round.
They, by the way, have zero appreciation for the fact that there's a European rugby final going on during this. But this is what the record button was made for.
Yes, indeed. And record. Stormers v Lions. The Stormers, obviously, we haven't seen them yet in the comp.
No, we get to go to Newlands, Cape Town. Unfortunately, no fans in Newlands.
Yeah, which is a big empty Newlands, which
they
is
tend to have the best fans, I would say, of all the Super Rugby teams.
No, there's can be a great atmosphere at Newlands for sure. Yes, it's unfortunate. Obviously, the same thread running through.
Yes,
it is also unfortunate that it clashes with the European final, which is just. Why
they both do that? They both do.
Yeah.
European final kicks off between the two games or during both of the games.
Indeed. And the Lions' tough start kind of continues because this is the second away fixture for them and they didn't get the win last week.
They're getting karmic punishment for all those years where they only ever seemed to play at home.
Yes, well, they're not at home here. They're in Newlands, and the Stormers will probably feel confident about their chances coming into this competition.
They've got to have a quiet ambition to win this competition. With the Sharks stuttering, having lost personnel, and the Bulls looking so poor last week, and the Lions being sort of a step down in recent seasons, the hole is there for the Stormers to walk into. I'm not sure if there's any sign of Peter Steff. We mentioned last week there was no sign of him.
He's still got an injury.
But they have a good team full of nice big Springboks. I tell you, the front row, you got Malherbe, Bongi, Mbanambi, and Stephen Kitsoff in there. That's
serious international caliber, not just international caliber, that's top level.
That's World Cup final winning. That's bullying England in the scrum level. Of props. So I mean that's
and the Lions pack have been tougher in years gone by than they are this year. That'll be tough for them, that matchup alone, as well as obviously Khaleesi in the back line or in the back row. Always a danger man and a talisman for them.
Brilliant player, and on his day he can be so rangy and so difficult to deal with. He's grown into a very mature operator. Like he in that game where they beat the Lions pre-season, they beat them 34-21 in Ellis Park. So now having bring them to Cape Town, they'll be confident again.
Quietly confident going into this.
But they're like. Khaleesi scored a good try where the maul was pivoting its way into touch and he just broke it exactly the right time, beat his man very nicely. He just has all those smart plays in him. And then in the back line, they have some firecrackers out there as well. They have Gallant, who for my mind is front runner, if getting closer and closer to being nailed down starter in the Springboks at fullback. He looks very, very sharp. They've got Ciabello Sinatla, another sevens killer on the wing.
Speed for days. And then in the halfbacks, you have Herschel and Willemse, who were a little sloppy
it's
in
on
the
those
goal.
boys
they need to kind of up their game to the level we know they can both reach. They've looked a little pre-season, which we'll forgive. It's obviously
frankly they were very poor in the Springbok showdown, both of them. Especially Willemse,
but even Herschel too was nowhere near the force. He forced his way into that Springbok side by the virtue of just playing really, really good rugby. It would be lovely to see him reach that level again. But as you say, just looking at on paper, that Stormers outfit is a serious team.
Very tidy.
And by contrast, the Lions, they have some pretty players as well. They obviously have made some acquisitions. Marvin Ori, Jaco Creel, and Willem Alberts. Big job for them to do.
Willem Alberts, old stalwart, used to be a back rower. He's now moving into the second row. I thought Ori in there with him was brilliant.
Yes,
I think he's there. He is there in our picture. I think he's got a lot of. I think he's got a lot to give for the Lions in South Africa. He's a nice rangy runner and can be nice and physical as well. And Jaco Creel, obviously. We know very well, very close to Springbok caliber player as well. So those guys, in terms of cancelling out what the Stormers are going to be bringing, it's a lot
is on them because those are the three top level guys. There are also a few jerseys in that Lions pack that are filled by guys who are definitely not on the same level as the Stormers. So they will need to try and make it about skill and flair and try and out-skill and flair the Stormers. That is obviously the Lions' way. They do provide that in the context of Super Rugby in South Africa a lot of the time, which Cheetahs been playing up north the last few seasons. they need to try and use tempo to try
keep bringing the tempo. Elton, keep bringing the width. The crossfield kicks are good. Absolutely work them in. Check the defence. Put them under pressure as often and as well as you can. And try and make a game of it. But if you're asking who I think will come out on top, I think the Stormers. I think the Stormers might be shifting into favourites for this competition.
Maybe
depending
so,
on
especially
how quick.
after that Sharks first week showing. That's possibly where they are. Well, certainly if the Lions lose this game, although it's back-to-back away fixtures to start,
it's also back-to-back L's.
If it's back-to-back L's, it puts you obviously on the back foot. It's very tough to win any competition well, after opening back-to-back
Spider-Man on the ropes.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah, I suppose that's it then.
The Sharks have the bye this week, so that's all the games this week, and onwards it ticks. Super Rugby Unlocked, and we're enjoying it so far. Great to have South African rugby back, and it's just our bellies are full of all the rugby we're getting these days,
and it's delicious because we were on a rugby diet, strict rugby diet for lockdown. It was
rugby hunger strike.
Yeah, indeed,
brutal.
No fun. So definitely a joy to see the Springbok. The Springboks and just the South African teams back in action. Sure.
And it's great stuff.
Yes.
Thanks for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, please like down below and subscribe for more videos. And please enter the comments section to join our conversation. Thanks.